So we've got all this great new technology, and the one thing that happens is something that I know is quiet. Sorry for that little blip, but we're back and I'm back. And so I'm going to start talking you through the embossing folders. We looked at the designs. I think visually you saw those, and we'll look at them in a little bit more detail. But if you have just joined us, welcome to Facebook Live. Huge apologies, everybody. I was sitting here for 15 minutes before we came live going, is it time yet? Is it time yet? And we did do all our checks, but obviously didn't quite press the right buttons. So this is the embossing folder, one of the three embossing folders. And you can see the little bits where we've got sort of little areas of distress, as if they're little splats of mud. And I was just saying to you that the important thing is that you've got plates that will hold that A4 plus a tiny bit, and that this all fits through your machine. So I'm just going to bring this machine into shot a little bit so you can see. You need a little bit of space there. But more importantly, it's the sandwich. So I've got a 3mm plate here, and I'm going to work with another 3mm plate and my embossing folder. That's going to work perfectly with my Pro Cut. And I'd just like to share with you another little idea. So I'm just going to open this up of the embossing folder, because I want it to look like the mud tracks are actually pushed into the soil. And I'll use my black rare earth ink pad because we will get the best and most obvious finish. And I'm just going to go over this. And now we're seeing the highlights of those areas where we've got little bits missing, but that's great. You can also, you don't have to do the whole thing with one ink pad. You can go and you can put more than one colour on. So there's some of my grey. Now this grey on this dark design probably isn't going to show up massively, but let's still do that and let's have a look at how it turns out. So knowing that I am going to get a full A4 edge to edge emboss means that I'm not going to waste a single scrap of my card. While that's going through the machine, I'm just going to move that out of the way a tiny bit. Let's take a look at what else you actually get. So I've got my vintage Escapades USB. Now we'll take a look in a few minutes. I'm just going to get that because it's going to bump into our lighting. So put you off. I'll just take this and we'll have a quick look at it while I've got it in my hands. So there you can see what that looks like. And you'll notice how we've got this lovely sort of like shadow effect inside the embossing. So you can see some of that ink has transferred over to the papers, which really does look great. And there you're seeing a really lovely finish on that. I'm going to pop that to one side and move these out the way and then talk to you about this USB. So on here, not only are you going to find the charisma and all of the backing papers, but there's a huge amount of beautiful product that complements all the other designs that we've got. Some of them have actually got the images that you've got of the actual design on them. Let's take a little look at some of them so you can see what we're getting on this USB. I'm just going to angle that so that the light's not reflecting too much and make sure I'm going the right way. So backing papers with the design at the bottom, which look fabulous. You're seeing also we've got them portrait and landscape. And as I'm going through them, this is just an overview, a taste of what you're actually going to be getting. And the variety that we've got on here gives you all of those beautiful, subtle tones that look vintage, that finish off your design, give you that coordinated and also finishing effect. That's just one of the folders that you're getting in this collection. Now, we've not loaded all of them. I'm going to move that just back out of the way. But we're giving you a taster of what you're getting. The charisma is on here as well. You've got them in all the different colorways. And again, we saw portrait and landscape designs. The next thing that we've got is a collection of dies. Now, there are actually 5 in the collection, but each collection has 3 dies in there, 3 with the outlines. So this one is our red brick barn with the tractor, and then also it's also got the farm produce. Now, if I take just one of those, this is that selection of dies. So you're seeing what you're paying here is the equivalent of about £3 each for each of these, which, bearing in mind the size of them and also the fact you've got the outline die, incredible value for money. We've also started putting for you the charisma on the side of your packaging. I think it's going to make it really easy at a glance to be able to look at what you're doing and how you can then build your design. So when I'm looking at these, I'm able to see which of them are going to work for the card project that I've got in mind. We've got our tractor, our steam train, with our steam tractor and also the steamboat, our 3 fabulous easels, we've got 3 vintage cars, and then finally we've got 3 elements in our aged collection, and that's not only the bottle and the glass but also a fabulous label as well. So they're all the dies that are included in here. I'm just picking up another one of them. So this is from the aged collection. Again, seeing the size that you've got. And if I take this label and I place it over the front, you'll see how that one is perfectly sized to be able to fit and give you more variety in your craft. The next part of the collection, which is something that I think is really, really useful and also very desirable when it comes to card making, having all of those complementary colours. This is a set of cardstock. Now, these are our 6 colours that we've got. So we've got that lovely slate grey. We've got the green in there, a very sage green. We've got almost like a burnt burgundy, a camel colour, a linen shade, and then we've got that earth brown. And all of those together are our cardstock collection. And in here, you are getting 48 sheets in total. And you're wanting to buy this now because you can't wait. Your item number's 749575. And I'm going to tell you that number again because it's a special number for this particular presentation. It's 749575. And we'll pop it on the details after the presentation so that you can then see it and you don't have to run for a pen. So what I'm going to do is I want to talk to you about composition. So I've prepped a couple of products here, and I'm just going to move my little notes out of the way. And they're really exciting little things for me because when I am doing a new project like this, one of the best parts about it is doing research. And I wanted to, and you guys asked specifically for things that took us out into the countryside. And I'm sure for our friends over in America and anybody who's been to America on holiday, I'm hoping that you might have visited a place called Cracker Barrel. And Cracker Barrel, the first time I went to it, it's a chain of stores that are in like barns. And they're restaurants and they do great breakfasts. But they also have a little area where they sell things that are crafty. And it became one of my favourite stores to go in America, not just because the food's great, but also because they have some really fantastic, interesting projects. Oh, by the way, we're not sponsored by them either. So that's is truly just a personal passion. And so it made me think about those barns and what you put in them. And it then got me doing some research about of all things, barns. And I started to learn a little bit more about them. And in the 1700s in America, obviously, like everywhere in the world, a farmer values his crops and all of his equipment. They're very, very important to him. But I was really curious as to why red was such an important colour when it came to barns, because we didn't even think about it when we coloured this charisma. We automatically chose red as a colour. And I loved the way that when Max did this, we've got this lovely sort of worn look on the actual sides of the panels. And you can see the detail as well. The actual different slats of the wood and the big barn doors, and how it sort of fades away as it goes to the back. And a lot of these barns are on hills, so that the farmer could drive into them from both ends. So from the top of the hill here, he can drive into one level, and from the bottom of the road here, he can drive into the other. But just going back to the colour, well, the colour was created because the farmers used a mix of lime, which is a natural product, and oxide, red oxide, so red iron oxide, which we find in the soil, and also skimmed milk, of all things, to make the paint. And that's what they came up with. And because the skimmed milk made it sort of plasticized, is why they've survived so many years. And I just found the whole story absolutely mesmerizing. So there's a little story about barns for you. If you've got a red barn anywhere in your garden or on a farm that you know about, please take pictures and send them, because I'd love to see a real one. Right, so let's go back to our card. So talking about perspective, I wanted to be able to show you an idea that I'd got for you. So first of all, the first thing that you need to do is to cut out a piece of card that's 7 inches square or 18 centimetres. I'm giving you approximate measurements. Then we need another piece of card that is either, so this time it's not going to be a square, it's going to be a rectangle. I'll turn this over so you can see the difference. So this time it's the same distance from the top and the bottom, so the height of the card is the same, but it's the width that's going to vary. And the width is going to vary by 1 centimetre or ½ an inch. And then you're going to take one of your square dies, and this is going to create our aperture. And we're going to pop this into the middle of the piece of cardstock and cut the aperture. Now, very carefully choosing your backing papers from the USB, you don't have to worry that I'm going to be cutting into this eagle, because I'm going to show you something we can do about that. But we're going to cut that aperture, and you're going to end up with this. So when we now put the aperture on top of the piece of card, of course we've got a gap because they don't meet. But what if we were to stick it so that this just bowed on either side enough to give us some dimension? Well, that's what we're going to do. So I'm going to take some red liner tape. So this is what we call red liner, and I've got 2 reels here, and they do sometimes stick together. You can just release them just by literally pulling quite firmly. I've got 2 different widths. I've got a 2 mil and a 4 mil. So I'm going to work with the 2 mil and just lift that up and line this down. Now this stuff sticks the second it touches your card, which is great because that's exactly what we want to happen. You can't tear it, you need to cut it. So once you've got it in place, just snip through the carrier and the actual tape itself. And then put that again on the other side. So we've got this on both sides, and it's ready for us to do our snipping. Now we're going to release the carrier. So it's this red here. That is actually just the carrier, the protector of the actual sticky glue, and you can see how sticky it is because I can just with the point of my pokey tool pick that up. Also, this red liner, the waste, is actually quite static, so it can tend to stick to your fingers, and if you're using a lot of it, one of the things that I'd suggest is you get some talcum powder and pop that on your fingers, because that's one of the things that stops it. Now remember I said it sticks like bilio. So if I stick this down and I get it in the wrong place, I'm not going to be able to move it. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to line up that top corner, and I'm going to check here that all of that is butted up together, which I'm happy it is. And then I'm going to release this piece here and make sure that is all in position absolutely perfectly. Now this is a tricky one, so I'm going to line that up so I make sure I've got it level at the top. I'm going to follow down the edge of the card and stick that in place. So there we go. So now I've created the bow front on my card. And that gives us that little bit of dimension. It also helps the card stand up perfectly. Considering we only added 1 centimetre, it's quite a considerable bow. So from would never go more than 1 centimetre or 1/2 inch, because that is really sufficient to get this look and feel. So the first thing that I'm going to do is, having printed out the backing paper again a couple of times, just done a little bit of decoupage and a bit of fussy cutting, and I've created an eagle. And that eagle is going to sit over the top, and his wings and his feathers are going to literally go over the edge of the design. So that's ready for me to pop in place. So let's take a little bit of tape and put that in place. Oops. So just the glue on his wings over the top there and press him down, and he's now in flight, and we can see he looks great. Now in the background I've got my for sale sign, I've got my tractor, and I've also got my barn. Now when you're doing this, I stuck my card down so that you could see the bow that I'd got here, but you have got enough room for you to be able to pull this back to slide these in place. So don't worry if you're sticking them down and thinking, gosh, how are you going to get it all in place? Because it does work quite easily. And also make sure that you're looking over the top of it when you're positioning these, because it's surprising how far up you actually need to go with the design to make it all sit perfectly. So take a look over the top. The other thing that you might want to do, and this is just a tiny little tip, little trick for you, take your tape pen, just a small amount, take off the tack using your fingers. So I'm just using the, well actually it's some of the ink that's on my fingers because it has left just a little mark, but that's enough for me to just hold it in place, check that I'm happy with the position, and then lift it back and move it. So if you want to do a temporary stick, then that's the way to do it. I actually would like my barn curled it just the tiniest little bit, so you've got that just a slight curl to it. And I'm going to now use some of my pin flare glue gel. I need a tiny bit there on the windmill, and then I'm going to go across the top with more of it in the middle. So I've purposely given myself a sort of a blob of it to be able to hold that shape. Don't let it touch the cardstock until you're ready to put it down, because what you don't want is you don't want to have to wipe that adhesive off. And then I'm ready to put my tractor in, and the tractor is going to sit right to the front there, a little bit over the barn, but just with a single line of adhesive will be sufficient to hold that in place. And I'm going to pop that down, and we're going to see how they go together. Then finally I've got my for sale sign that's going to go on the bottom, and I'm making sure that the edges of the design are level with the bottom of my card, not overhanging, because that's going to make it rock and it won't sit still. Give that a little bit of a press down, and we've created our barn card really simply and easily. But we've got the dimension of the detail. It makes the sign look like it's jumping out. The tractor really does look like it's in front of the barn in perspective. And because we didn't stick the edges down of our frame, you can see just inside, you can just see down the side of the barn. So it's a really clever and interesting way of building dimension on your cards. But that's not all. We're going to do another one. So I'm just going to put that to one side where that, and in fact, do you know what I am going to do? Just to make that stick properly, I'm going to put a little piece of this tape behind my for sale sign. And to a little tip for you, let me do it with a bigger piece, it'll be easier for you to see. So when you just find the end, it's a bit like finding the end when you're wrapping presents, which by the way, you have to use your tape pens for, it's so much easier. So I've got a piece of tape. Now getting the back off that's going to be really fiddly. So fold it over like this, so they're double. Make it so one piece of it isn't quite as folded over as the other. And then it's easier to get your finger in and peel it off and get that piece of glue. So that now is going to stick just behind my sign, just to make sure that it doesn't stand out too much from the edge. Much happier with that finish. Right, pop that one to one side. Let's go and have a look at the next one. Just if you have just joined us, welcome to Facebook Live. We had a little blip at the beginning where I think I was talking, you couldn't hear me. Some would say that's bliss. But we are looking at a brand new kit and it's called Vintage Escapades. And it really is about vintage design, but all the fun that you can have when we are down the farm, on the tractors, in the old-fashioned cars, all of that kind of thing. If anybody who has missed this, you'll find it on Create and Craft. There's some fabulous samples on there as well, so you can see some of the other inspiration. And we've got a special item number for you. It's 749575. If you like to use that item number, then that will get you the best possible price. Okay, everyone, so I'm just going to open this up. So let's take a look at this. So first of all, we can immediately see that it's been cut from bigger than A4. So you need to work with an A3 piece of card. Then the next thing that we're going to do is, and let me just give you a measurement for that. So you need 12, no you don't, you're going to need, let me just measure the whole thing. So you're going to need 4 and 6. You're going to need 14 inches. So 14 inches in length and then 6 inches in height. Then the first thing that we do is we're going to fold it at 2 inches and 2 inches, and that's going to fold back and give us just, it's like a gatefold, fold back. And then we've got the next one, gatefold, fold back. So you'll see that the distances are all in a third. So a third, a third, a third. Okay. Right. Now we've got into our beautiful backing papers on our USB and chosen a couple of fabulous designs. This one has come from the card pack, and this one is actually one of those complimentary papers. And what you will notice is that in things like the steamroller and the steamboat, can you see the hues of blue that we've got in here? And although this one's green, we've still got little bits of blue in the brown, and it really just brings all these shades and colours together. You don't have to worry about doing any distressing because we've done that as part of the printing on the design. So the first piece is going to go down onto our cardstock, and this is going to just fill in the back so that rather than us having something that's plain and can look quite stark, we're going to have something that looks colour coordinated and finished with the correct designs. Just going to move my silicone out of the way. Actually, well, pin flare glue gel, I have to apologise. Do you know, those of you that know Christine from Princess Pin Flare even, you will know that this glue is fabulous because not only does it have no smell, but it dries absolutely crystal clear. When you're putting the lid on, just make sure you've got a little plug of glue left so that that goes on and it seals in there. You're not going to get air in there, and then you won't have to unclog it when you come to use it next time. So there's the first piece down. I've got some Fingerlift Tape, and the reason we call it Fingerlift is, look, you can see the edge of the carrier has been lifted up just by using my finger, and that makes it very easy for me to work with. And then I'm going to place this in position and get that down. So that's the first of the panels. I've now got to do my outside edges, and some of the rest of the decoration. So I've put tape just down the middle of these panels for speed. But if you're doing this at home, please put the tape down both sides, because what we don't want to happen is it to start lifting with the central heating or while it's on the mantelpiece. I'm then going to take this panel and I'm going to place this actually over the top. So I've got a little bit of decoration, making sure I've got the music going the right way up. That's important because well, it is going to go that way because I don't want it. I'm just going to check which one of these panels I want on which side. Yeah, I think I will put this one on here. So that goes there. Sometimes, you know, it's a good idea to actually write on there the order that you want to stick them down, because if you're doing a lot of cards, it's very easy to forget when you're prepping which order you want them in. I'm just going to lift this one. Just going to pull it towards me because that's exactly what I didn't want to happen, what's happened there. Can you see how I've pulled some of the fibres at the top? You can see it's on the card, just as I've got here. So what can we do about that? Well, first of all, I wouldn't recommend trying to put those fibres back down, because that is actually going to just make it look worse. So just check if you can get away with it by positioning that and going over the top. And absolutely I can. The only problem I've got is this little bit that's lifted here. So let me show you a little trick to make something that you can put some adhesive on. So go to my little notes about my red shed, and just going to get a tiny bit of glue. I'm going to spread that out because we want it very thin, and then take this, slide it underneath, just get a little bit on the edge so you can see how I've slid that underneath, and that will then stick down perfectly. So there we go. So problem solved. That's that. And then just got another one of these panels, and I'm going to place this over the top. I'm just going to check that, and I'm looking at this line here that's coming through, and it's going to follow through there. Quite like the way that's going to work and sit together. Okay, so now, I've got this first card like this, but what about if I wanted to put a panel perhaps going over the front, that like I've got here? That could be something that could be an option. And if I press that down and I put the panel on so that it fills that gap, which it does, my card is still going to spring up enough for this to stand up on its own. And in fact, we've got about the same distance there as we had with this one, with that bowed front. So again, that gives you an idea of the amount of card that you're going to need to be able to get that to lift up. So I've got two panels here. I've got choices. I could be putting these inside, so I've got decoration on both the sides, but I am going to use it as a panel that's going to go across the front of my card. And the reason that I'm going to do that is because I think this will be the perfect place for me to be able to put one of my elements from my design. So let's take a look at some of the other options that we've got. I could be using the outline of the die and then putting these panels on top, so I've got almost like a shadow effect. I could move the shadow so it's offset and then put the design behind it. Looks really strong when you do that. Next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to look at doing the same with the other panels. So here's the second one, so our steam tractor, but let's offset that one and let you see what that looks like. So offset enough for you to see that shadow, making sure the shadows are following all the way across. And then, in fact, if I swap these around, this will be probably better balanced. We'll put the train there. Again, great offset. Here's my boat, offset. And then finally on this side, I would put my steam engine. So you've got all three of them actually in this story. Now, if we put the panel across the front, which I do here, a lot of that's going to be hidden in the inside. So think about the design before you make the decision whether you want to put that panel on the front. I'm absolutely sure I do, so I'm going to use the smallest of the designs, so the one that's the tightest in the middle, and it's going to be this one. So a little bit of glue, and I can go into my silicone for this. Oh, my silicone, my pin flare glue gel. I've been saying that for probably 17 years and still don't get out of the habit. And then I've already got the foam on the back here. So let's take the foam off the back. So great thing about kits like this are not only are they timeless, they're going to stand the test of literally every year, every time you need a retirement card or a card for the grandchildren or a card for your husband or your brother-in-law who happens to be a fan of vintage cars. But also the other thing that you've got is you've got the opportunity to be able to sell your cards if you choose to. So these cards are not just about you being able to make them for family and friends. Because we have such a generous angel policy, you can sell them as well. Now the tape on this piece of card has been put all the way across. So what I'm going to do here is I'm just releasing a little bit of the backing so that I've got my adhesive on either side, but I don't have to worry about this piece in the middle because that is actually still going to be covered up. I'm going to fold this piece back, make sure that it touches the edge of the cardstock on this side and that this one touches the edge on this side. I'm checking the distance here and here to make sure I've got it straight, which I believe I have. Let's put that down and give it a good press. You can see now how we're starting to build the card. You're looking inside. And then what I need to do now is choose the next panel that's going to go on train. And it will just leave me enough room up here to be able to put my sentiment even. It's one of those days today. The words don't seem to be as free-flowing as I perhaps would like them. So let's take the back off here. We have made, again, another really good card in very little time, but with a story that goes all the way through to the back. Now, the other part of this is we've still got one of these boats left. So what would be my choices here? Well, just because you're decoupaging, don't miss the effect or the illusion of being able to put one over the other, so that actually you're really building up the front of the card. The other thing that we could be doing with this, especially once you've got the back on it, is building that into a little gift tag. And to make that gift tag really strong, we're going to need a piece of ribbon or a piece of card. So here we go. We're going to make it into the ribbon that we need. And because we know the tape sticks to it, we can actually use this to make it work. So this should work. So I'm going to take the tape and I'm going to place that across the middle of this piece of card. Right, there you go. And I'm going to place one side of the liner there and one side of it there. So I've actually got that in position. In fact, I'm just going to make sure they both are stuck. Then I'm going to take another piece of the liner tape and put it over the top. So I've sandwiched that right in the middle. Take off the backing, snip it through. I'll put a little bit up the funnel because we're going to need to make sure we've got it well stuck down. Need to go a little bit tighter there, and to get the back off there, the back off there, and by putting this over the top, lining that up perfectly, I've now created myself a little gift tag. Whoops, there we go. Little gift tag using the waste from the red liner. So my card and my gift tag are perfect and ready to gift to somebody. So let's just take another look at what we've actually got included in here, because there is so much, and it is not just the value for money, but think about what you can do with those embossing folders. I've done just a couple of little things for you where you saw us inking with a couple of colours, but think about what you could do if you were distressing with it as well. So I'm just going to take this piece and I'm going to do a little bit of distressing. Now, a sanding block is perfect for this, but every now and again, when you haven't got one to hand, you can take your scissors, and if I just hold this over here, you'll see that we're starting to get distressing on those tyres, and you're starting to see the tyres, and just move it along, do the same thing. Make sure the tyres are proud, because it's that part that you want to distress. I'm just going to go here, just a little bit more. I'm just going to get that distressing. I'm just going to turn these scissors so I've got it coming towards me. And you really can start to see how we're distressing those tyre tracks, just enough in different places. So with the sanding block, you'd be going and be getting much more of that all in one go. But with this, we could go into little patches in different areas. It's really effective. Don't miss the chance of trying that as well. So for everybody who's joined us, thank you so much. We'll look forward to seeing you again. Trying to do more of these, lots more ideas and inspiration. Please email in. Don't forget to send pictures of barns. We'd just love to see those. Tell us what else you'd like to learn. What else can I teach you? And also, don't forget that special code. I'm just going to give you that code once more. It's 749575. And of course, I'll see you again on Create and Craft very, very soon, I hope.